The last parliamentary break week before the summer recess had wedge politics on full display. Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau pitched competing visions on cutting gas taxes and raising the taxes on capital gains. Meanwhile, the Speaker of the Saskatchewan Legislature spilled some strong political tea. There are more questions about yet another Conservative nomination race, and tens of thousands of people got their teeth fixed. We're going to check the pulse of Canadian politics with our a panel of party insiders. Excuse me. Greg McEachern is a former Liberal ministerial staffer. I almost called you your own party. Melanie Richer is a former NDP communications director, and Fred Delory is a former Conservative national campaign manager. It's the end of a week where I had a bit of a bug, and I've lost the ability to speak.
I feel like Kim Mitchell. I am a wild party, Dave. Yeah.
Fred, speaking of wild parties, the nomination issues in the Conservative Party. Kate McKenna with a story about what's happening in Pickering, Uxbridge. 4 or 5 stories like this now, mostly in Toronto area ridings. Remember Ian Fleming, who wrote Goldfinger, the great James Bond author, said once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. What are 4 or 5 nomination controversies?
To me, it's a sign of a healthy party that's ready to take government. When you have nominations that are so vital and so important and so worth winning, people throw everything at them. And sometimes they go too far, which I think is what we're seeing in some of the instances where people are being disallowed in different areas. If you go back 10 years ago, I remember the Liberals had this problem right before they took government. Go 20 years ago, I remember my Conservative Party had this issue. Right. It's something that's cyclical. It's something that happens. And when I say problem, it's a problem that you have a lot of people very fired up trying to win nominations. The issue that we're talking about today, this individual, he was a party president and he was on the nomination committee. Mm-hmm. Once you join that committee, you decide you're a referee for the nomination process. You can't step out of that and then try to become a candidate. It's a very simple rule. I've overseen in my role in the party over 1,000 nominations, and it's a very, very clear and problematic issue. You can't do this.
So Mr. Jacob, what he said to Kate McKenna is that he has in writing assurances that if he resigned, he would be able to run in the upcoming nomination. So he resigned, but then he says a new interpretation came out and said, no, anybody who held office even then can't run next time. I mean, does that jive with the way it was with you?
Again, it's not hold office. He joined the nomination committee. And that's always been the interpretation. It's very clear.
Because he's president of the EDA, right?
Right, but then he joined the committee, and when you're on the committee, you get access to information that you're now a referee in the process. You can't then step out and run. Right. It's like if I'm running a nomination committee, and Greg crosses the floor, joins the Conservative Party, and decides to run, and he's my buddy, I want to support him. I can't leave that committee and then support him either. Right. I cannot be involved. I have to be neutral the whole time. And also, if he joins our party and I want to run against him because I don't think he should be a Conservative candidate, I can't do that either.
Right, that's Greg's pick later, by the way. He's crossing the floor. So, Mel, what do you make of this? Is this someone who misunderstood the rules and is upset and some sour grapes? Or, when you get 4 or 5 of these stories, does it suggest that there is some thumbs on some scales somewhere?
Right, well, I think that's the problem. I think if this was sour grapes, the fact that it's now the 4th or 5th story, tells people who are paying attention at home that there's maybe something to see here, and whether there is or whether there isn't, that's what we're having to talk about, right? And it means that the Conservatives aren't talking about the things that they want to be talking about. And folks, we know, based on polling and focus grouping, when the House affairs don't seem like they're managed properly, people start asking questions. So whether or not it is sour grapes, I think people are watching this going, okay, this seems like it's a trend instead of just maybe 1 or 2 incidences. And I think regardless of what it is, that's not good news.
So Greg, it hurt the Conservatives in Oxford, right? Remember the controversy around Arpancana being the preferred candidate there. Didn't cost them the seat. The margin of victory shrunk down to single digits from what was historically a double-digit thing. The national polls are what the national polls are. I don't know if this bubbles up to the broader political consciousness or not, but is there potential internal challenges that come from something like this? How do you see it?
I think the most important thing to watch is if this is indicative of a greater problem. Is this somebody deciding from a very dictator sort of approach to how they're going to do nominations? I get it. You're popular right now. People want they want the nomination. The problem with this one, I saw Kate McKenna's interview with you earlier, and he seems to have some receipts that suggest that he would be allowed to go forward. This person was a president, so this is somebody who's a pretty active volunteer. Those are not the people that, of course you want them around in good times, but those are the people you need in bad times. And I think what happens is, my experience, especially in smaller communities, when people see things like this in the political process, they're less enthused about being involved, and perhaps in that riding, maybe they go off somewhere else. I will say there's an interview that Pierre Poilievre did in November of 22 where he talked about the nomination process.
Right.
And he said that he wanted contested nominations and unheld seats, that he wasn't going to hand out nomination tickets to, a chosen few. Now, that interview is with Sabrina Maddow. So you can, from the National Post YouTube channel, she also asks about what's he going to do to bring in more young candidates. So it was an interview, and it was a job interview, I guess, as well. But at that time, he said he wanted more contested nominations, and we're really kind of not seeing it with these 4 examples.
Fred, he always digs deep to find these things, to try to just twist whatever knife he can, right?
There's a name. I will say researcher is my background, but there's another name. That's
I know. It's a hat pucker. But Fred, help me on this, right? He did say that he wants contested nominations, and I think that is a sign of a party where there is real interest. But there has been some handpicking going on, right? Mr. Gill and Milton, I think was just kind of hey, you're going to be our candidate, and there has been a little bit of that, and I know that is the right of a party to do and the right of a leader to do, and not necessarily a sign of anything untoward. But how do you balance this as you want a slate of candidates that you can win with and form a cabinet with, but you don't want to disincentivize the people who show up for you in the bad weather to put the signs in lawns?
Yeah, for the most part, you need fair and open nominations and a rules-based process. There's going to be times, like with Mr. Gill, I believe, they opened the nomination and it was closed relatively short. There was still a time for other candidates to step up if they were
it sends a signal, right, that this is what we want and this is what we're going to get, right?
In certain circumstances, but again, there was still a process there. If someone was organizing and doing something, they could have got into that race, and no one did. At the end of the day, though, the rules are very clear. They're very spelled out. I've never heard of anyone who's on the nomination committee to step off and try to run and then be allowed to. It's just not done. This is standard protocol within the party. It's not a new thing that they're doing.
Okay, and just for people watching at home, this happens in every party with nominations, especially, but mostly with the parties that look like they're going to form government in the next election. Exactly. So this is why we're talking about it in the Conservatives. It's not trying to pick on the Conservatives, but this is just where they are on the political side.
10 years' time, the Liberal Democratic Coalition, new United Party may have this issue.
Yeah, when the Bloc is winning seats in Saskatchewan.
Once we wipe them out for a few years.
And Mel's Prime Minister.
She might be if things like dental care keep working. Because Mel, this is something you wanted to talk about. I know you've raised dental a few times in our conversations, but now we're actually seeing the actual results of it as it rolls out.
Totally. We're seeing people who are actually signing up for the program and getting their teeth taken care of. The CBC reported earlier this week about how 46,000 seniors over the age of 70 had gotten their teeth taken care of because of the dental care program that the NDP got in exchange for supporting the government with the Supply and Confidence Agreement. And it is no longer an idea. It is no longer something that the NDP pushed for. It is a real thing that people are in a real way benefiting from. And what's interesting is in the lead up to next January, we're going to see even more people be able to access that program. And on the flip side, we have kind of heard in the last little bit the Conservatives or Pierre Poilievre say, well, the program doesn't exist. So he doesn't have opinion on it because it doesn't exist. Well, now it does. People are getting their teeth taken care of. People that he's trying to speak to, that he's saying that, he wants to help. And this is just, I think, a gem for the NDP to go back to all of their ridings, to go back to the ridings that they're trying to win, especially in those working class ridings where they're up against the Conservatives, to say, you have more money in your pocket and your teeth are being taken care of because of us. And this guy over here wants to take that away from you. So I think that that's a win, period, because people are getting their teeth taken care of, but I also think it's a huge tool for the NDP in the lead up to the next election.
The NDP, Mel, are really focusing their news releases and their messaging on Poilievre this week and last week. Jagmeet Singh has always had this sort of double direction of like smacking around Trudeau while keeping Trudeau in office and not really focusing, but he is really focusing on Poilievre now. What do you think is happening there?
Well, because I think we see that the guy to beat in the lead up to the next election isn't the Prime Minister, right? The guy to beat currently right now with polls is the Conservative leader. And there's this maybe misunderstanding of who New Democrat voters are. For the most part, sure, there is those, orange-red voters who flip between the NDP and the Liberals, but there's a huge segment of voters who flip between the NDP and the Conservatives. And in a lot of the places where the NDP wants to grow, where they're not doing well right now, or that they want to do better in, is those orange-blue seats. We saw Premier Canoe win in Manitoba. That's somewhere where the NDP wants to grow. The NDP did really well in the last election. They didn't pull it off in Alberta, but they did well. Saskatchewan, Carla Beck is doing well, and of course Premier Eby in BC. So those are all places the NDP can grow, but they grow at the expense of the blue team, not at the expense of the red team.
So Greg, what opposition research have you found on Jagmeet Singh and dental that you're going to drop on us now?
Well, funny enough, back in March, I mentioned at one point in PEI, the PEI Dental Association was very upset with the program. I went back and checked. 3 weeks later, Health Minister Mark Holland met with them, and there's been a complete reversal in PEI about how this program is working. I think there are some things where dentists thought that at the beginning it looked like they had to fill out a form and join, and now you can do the work and submit it the same way you would.
Yeah, by July that's going to be the system.
Yeah, an insurance claim. One of the things that I read in the CBC article that kind of stuck out to me was the dentist who said he was going to have to expand his practice, but he said what he had seen was he'd only seen it in relief work he had done in Haiti. Some of the conditions were so bad. So what that says to me is that these people were very close to an emergency situation. And it's going to take a little while for us to be able to measure this, but there could be impacts on the healthcare system where in preventing a more urgent care situation is probably more beneficial for the patient as well as the healthcare system.
Fred, I mean, clearly this is affecting the lives of a lot of people who qualify for this, but politically, this is one of those wedge issues, right, that the Liberals and the NDP are using this week to go at Poilievre and the Conservatives. I mean, is he vulnerable on these as this program starts taking root? And you can't just say it doesn't exist anymore, so I'm not going to answer what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, I believe he is, because as this program rolls out and gets developed across the country, people become dependent on it, become aware of it. Before this, it was nothing. It didn't exist, as he said. But once it's out there, once people are getting, tens of thousands of seniors are getting their teeth fixed, it becomes an ingrained thing in this country. And it's one of those things that it feels like a Canadian nation-building thing when we do these sorts of programs. So it is going to be something that his team is going to have to look at and really decide come next election in a year and a half what their position on this and be very clear on it. There's healthcare was one of these things that came in, and I'm sure, I wasn't around back when that debate happened. I'm sure the Conservatives probably had big issues with it, but eventually adopted it. And this is probably going to be one of those things when we get down this road.
Greg has a binder of research on the things they said about healthcare back then. Speaking of someone who's done the research, there was this. I don't know how to describe it, Greg, but what you were texting me, you're like, are you seeing what's happening in Saskatchewan right now? Where at the end of the session, and I know this is provincial politics, so we're kind of going a little bit off what we do, but the speaker, Randy Weeks, stood up and just started reading text messages into the record, saying that the government House leader brought a gun and was seeking permission to bring a handgun in. I've never seen anything like that in all my years.
Same. And I have a little soft spot in my heart for provincial politics because I worked in it before moving to Ottawa. And a lot of times, if you're not Ontario or Quebec, you don't make the news. But when you do make the news, sometimes the national news, sometimes it's not great. And so yesterday, I was watching the speaker in Saskatchewan because the night before, he had posted a photo where he had cut up his membership card to the Saskatchewan Party, the governing party in Saskatchewan, the one that he belongs to. And he had said enough is enough. And there were some kind of rumors in Saskatchewan media that he was going to do this final statement. And it was going to be, a barn burner, and it was. in the weeks before, there have been a lot of issues between the government House Leader in Saskatchewan and the Finance Minister. The Speaker had read some texts before. Since this has happened, Premier Moe has come out and said that the allegations are unfounded, but then in the interview he had to say, well, the ones where he has the text messages, no, he's not talking about that. But I think we're going to have to find out pretty soon whether or not a gun was actually brought into the Saskatchewan.
A hunting rifle is what it is, by the way.
And my other point on this is that we have heard a lot of noise from some provincial premiers this year. The lead up to April 1st, or in the carbon price, if you don't have this meeting, it's the end of the world, and then we move on to another topic. But Blaine Higgs in New Brunswick is another case. The Progressive Conservatives, it's an election year, they canceled their AGM. Things are not good in that party. And my message on that would be to both us in Ottawa and media is that when you have a provincial premier coming out strong against the federal government, there's a reason for that, and maybe ask why they're doing that. In the case of Moe, there seems to be a hell of a mess there, and I think that election is probably more in play than people would have thought 3 months ago.
Well, Mel, that's certainly been your position, and I know Andrew Thompson, who's on the show on Thursdays, has said there is this other right-wing party in Saskatchewan sort of nipping at their flank a bit and forcing some of these moves, but almost 24 of their incumbent MLAs not running again, and you've got the Speaker going out the door like this. I know he lost his nomination, and they say there's some frustration there, but boy, oh boy, text to the Speaker criticizing their rulings is out of bounds, and the gun stuff, whatever that is, I mean, that's something else.
Totally, and maybe it's a little bit similar to the conversation that we had earlier for Fred's point. The more that you're talking about this stuff, the more that you're having to respond to it, the less people know what you stand for and what it is that you want to talk about. And to your point about taking shots federally, it seems like that has been his message. So it'll be interesting to see, the election's coming soon. I don't know that the NDP was as much in play as they are now, which is a testament to Carla Beck and not letting her foot off the gas on the different things that Premier Moe and his government have or haven't done. But this just doesn't smell good. And I think that the either ability or inability to respond to it may make a difference in the lead up to their election.
Fred, heck of a way to end your session right before you go into an election. The Speaker saying stuff like that.
Not just session, career, right? This Speaker Weeks has been an MLA for 25 years, loyal member of the Saskatchewan Party, attending caucus events all the time. He was at their summer retreat last summer. He was at their party convention in November where Pierre Poilievre spoke. December, he lost his nomination. He hasn't gone to anything since then. That's what's driving this. I've been following this closely for the last number of weeks and months. This is not something that just blew up the last week. He's been out there very aggressive against his own government for the last while since he lost that nomination. And I think this is a guy who sees his career is done, and he's just blowing the whole thing up right now.
But to have the allegation of a House leader trying to get permission to bring a handgun into a legislature, and having brought a gun there. I mean, if you're Scott Moe, Weeks is gone, right? But he's left a lovely parting gift for his colleagues as they go into the campaign trail. How do you deal with that with an election coming up in a little while?
Oh, look, I don't think this is something that people are going to be paying much attention to there within a few days' time, right? This will blow over quickly. This was the end of session thing. This was a speaker who really sadly ended his career going against the party he's worked with his whole life. And again, this goes back, I've seen them in the House attacking other cabinet ministers and challenging them on stuff and being really over the top and out of bounds on what a speaker should be when you're a referee. He was against that on Saskatchewan government for the last number of months.
But I referenced that. But he read text from cabinet ministers. Look, he's the speaker. He is not the Saskatchewan Party speaker. He's the speaker of the legislature. And if they've given him the evidence, sour grapes or not, it's on them. They handed this to him.
I got 10 seconds because the show's going to end. Go ahead.
Look, I do think this is sour grapes, what's been driving this whole thing.
Okay, all right, we're going to have to leave it there. Sorry, Mel. We'll get you into this next week.